If someone offered me all the money in the world today and asked me to buy any motorcycle of my choosing, what would I do? I would keep my Triumph Scrambler 400X as it is and probably take a lot of money for fuel and maintenance costs because I'm gonna need quite a few for the maintenance. In today's video, I will describe my experience with my Triumph Scrambler 400X. I've done about 23,000 kilometers with it. I'm currently in the middle of a trip and I've just come back from the mountains. So let's start with the pros of the bike. Why I like it so much and why I say that it is the perfect bike for me at this very moment. The biggest factor is the amount of fun that this bike offers me. It is fabulously, fantastically fun. I love the way this handles. I love the power output that it provides me. I love how calm it is when I need it to be calm and how ferocious it is when I want it to be a little bit extra fun. And let's start with the riding dynamics. So, last week I did a trip to the mountains with the Royal Enfield Hunter 350, and that was because my bike was in the service center. And when I gave that bike back to my brother and took my own bike, the difference in the suspension setup and in the chassis was incredible. I could not believe how much my bum just thanked me because coming from like 2 weeks with the Hunter and that very stiff, very small suspension setup, I was used to standing up a little at every single bump on the road that I saw. I was standing up even at small undulations in the surface level of the road. So if a road was like this because it was a concrete road, I would have to stand up with the Hunter. But I was quite pleasantly surprised when I came back to my Triumph Scrambler that I didn't really need to do that, you know. So it was a I had almost forgotten how a normal bike is supposed to function after that. And I went in this trip with the very same brother who is the owner of the Hunter. And for a small stretch of the trip, he we exchanged the bikes, and he used that bike on a very narrow road, like a very small, very sharply elevated road with a lot of turns because we were climbing up to go see this very beautiful Mahadev Ji ka mandir. And I think it was at that moment where he just decided that the Triumph Scrambler would be the new bike that he was going to get. And we had just test driven the KTM Adventure 390 a little while ago. And while that is a good bike, I do not think that that fit our riding style because we like to have a little bit of the grunt at the lower levels of the RPM, at the lower revs. So, describing the chassis and the suspension setup, I would say that it is very responsive and very fluid in a way that it makes it easy to ride while being very efficient and effective at cornering. So, in all of the curves and the corners, I felt very safe taking them on, and the power output to the rear wheel, it's quite smooth and quite instant. So whenever I needed to um, brake and turn my bike in for a corner, it would happen very quickly. And whenever I needed it to stand back up and have the suspension elongate, if you're aware of that, it would do it almost instantly. So I would say that this is a very high quality chassis and a very high quality suspension system, and one that I'm very happy with. This bike is fun to ride. It is easy to ride. I have never had issues with its handling in traffic, in city. It is very easy. Dare I say, I find it easier to ride this in traffic than my old Honda SP 125, which is just about 150 kgs. And That is the level of easiness that I'm talking about. Like, it is easier than a commuter. And that is because, say, I'm going at like 4 kmph, I can ride that bike without needing to put my foot down, just balance it quite perfectly with the help of my foot and a little bit of throttle control. So, fantastic work by Triumph. The engineering in this is phenomenal, and comparing that to the Dominar, for example, which has a, should I say, comparable engine, the difference is just massive, because even though this bike is nearly 200 kgs, and I think it is a little bit over 200 kgs after getting fuel in it, which will be almost always that you are riding it, you really don't feel it. So, quite simple. Like, the Hunter feels much heavier than this. I wouldn't say much heavier, but this is just easy. This is just simple. The power output is two dimensional. It is almost how Honda VTEC owners describe their cars, but here it is quite evident, and that is the power output below 6500 rpm is something else. The power output above 7000 rpm is something entirely different. So, to be very honest, I rarely take this bike over 8 7000 rpm, and that is because I am a very calm rider, and even when I'm going fast, I like to focus on my smoothness and the minimal level of upsetting the suspension, the lines that I can. Obviously, I am not that smooth in actuality, but at least that is what I try to do. So, let me just say, it is scarily fun when you take it to those higher RPMs. And that is because the power that kicks in, I do not think that you need, practically anyone ever needs anything with more power on Indian road conditions, because we just do not have that architecture and the spaciousness and the infrastructure to make use of anything more. Like, go take a test drive and just see for yourself. If you take the RPMs of a test drive, like at 8000 RPM, and the amount of kick that it gives you, and how instant it is in taking off. So, it is an experience, it is fun. But I myself, I like to just ride it at 6000, 4500, because I am more of a smooth cruiser and someone who likes to take on curves smoothly rather than just trying to go faster and faster, because I want to have fun. I'm not counting any time. However, I would just like to add that while I was, what do they call it? Do they call it braking the engine? Like the engine braking phase. What do they call it? I forgot. But the phase where you do the first 5000 or so kilometers, 3000, I don't even remember anymore. At that time, I did use the entire RPM range in order to brake my engine smoothly and evenly. And I think that has quite well paid off, because my engine is very smooth and it sounds nice. Speaking of sound, I think that this bike has a very distinct sound, and that is what I am told by all of my colleagues, I guess, when I take my bike to the office, and even my brothers and everyone, my friends, they kind of know that I've arrived because of how my engine sounds. Another Triumph Scrambler rider and someone else who had also tried another Scrambler, they just both said to me that my engine sounds a little bit different, and that may have been because I have done my engine braking correctly. But I don't know. That is just what they have both told me, and not something that I've experienced myself. And with the sound and the looks, and it has a little bit of that big bike look that you can see in the Scrambler 900 or the Scrambler 1200 even. Like, it has that big bike presence, and with that sound and that, I know it's not a twin cylinder, but those two exhaust outlets, it looks amazing. And in terms of looks, I think that the Scrambler, Triumph Scrambler, is the best looking bike in the world. I thought that before buying my own bike. I used to think that the Triumph Scrambler 1200 XE was the best looking bike in the whole world, with that phenomenal twin exhaust that is pasted on the right side of it. And I would just like you to go on Pinterest, I guess, and write Triumph Scrambler on it. And the bounty of beautiful pictures that come up is just insane. I used to love that. I also used to like the retro bike look a lot. So that would be the Honda Highness. I guess I was quite a big fan of it. Almost bought it before buying this bike. And even the Hunter. A retro bike just looks good, and this has aspects of the best aspects of the look of a retro bike, while also having that look about it that you are in a post world, post war world, where everything is in ruins and you need to make your way through a desert, I guess. And with the air that we are seeing in Delhi NCR, we might as well be, because that is what we are breathing, to be honest. Quite dystopian, the living conditions that we have to face every day just to survive. My lungs were quite thankful when I was in Himachal this past week, and I'm so sad coming back. Why am I wasting my day? I could have just gone there again. I'm currently living in, I'm for the day I'm in Chandigarh, and I could have easily taken a bike ride there again. All right, anyways, I could not count on both hands the number of people who have just asked me randomly that, am I going to Ladakh or something, or do I have a YouTube channel? Like, the amount of people who ask me, do I have a YouTube channel? It is probably more than like 30, I guess, at this point. I don't even know. And we are talking about complete random strangers on the road, like people at dhabas, or people maybe filling the petrol tank, or just random strangers at red lights. And might as well start a YouTube channel at this point, because everyone just asks it to me. Now, one of the doubts that I had before buying this bike is that I had heard a lot about the amount of vibration that this bike has, and because I wanted to tour with this bike, I was afraid that I would not be able to tour at a good pace, and I would not be happy in that aspect. And that was kind of what was inkling me towards buying the Honda Highness earlier, but that was before I had taken a test drive of either bike. And when I did a test drive, in fact, and I rode the Honda Highness at 80 kmph, it is true, it is an incredibly smooth engine with a ridiculously minimal amount of vibration for a bike that cc. But that is also because it provides a lot less amount of power. Whereas with the Scrambler 400X, obviously it is a high revving engine and it provides a lot more power at a relatively similar amount of cc's of the engine. Yes, it does rev a lot, but practically speaking, have I been bothered by it ever in my ownership experience? And I've done quite a lot of trips with it now. No, I do not get bothered by it a bit, and that is because a I always like to ride with my gloves. Like, it is more than a habit; it is a matter of preference. I do not like riding with naked hands, and B, I hold my bike lightly. I use proper riding technique, and I do not grip onto the handlebars. And if you are aware of those two things, I do not think that the amount of vibration that this bike has is in any way detrimental to your riding experience. At least this has not been true for me. I'm completely happy with the amount of vibrations that it has, and that is a fact that only got cleared up after test rides. After test rides with bare hands, after test ride with riding gloves, and I am perfectly happy with it. In fact, to be very honest, I got a little bit bored of the Honda Highness after 4 test drives, and The Highness is also not a very good bike to ride standing up in either, but the standing up posture in this bike is quite natural and I like it a bit. The only bikes that I have found in my test riding experience to be more natural in riding standing up is maybe the X-Pulse or probably the Himalayan, I guess. But even the KTM Adventure 390X, I kind of just like my own bike a lot more than that one. I have had a lot of learning to do, a lot of learning about how to ride a bike properly, about how to even sit on a bike. Because if you sit inefficiently on the highway, you are going to get exhausted quickly. And it is only because I sit properly is that I can, for example, just last week, and that was on the Honda Hunter 350, which is a lot less efficient. I came from the mountains, I gave an exam in Chandigarh, and then I drove another. I rode another, I think, 200 kilometers or so, and a good portion of that was after sunset in the dark. And even after that, I was not falling over to the bed. Like I guess I don't even do that anymore after a trip. So I'm quite happy. This bike has offered me a huge amount of learning experience, and it has the suspension and the chassis, which is almost as good as a sports bike might be, so that I'm able to learn the proper cornering technique, trail braking, and where to look well when I'm cornering, how to sit. I feel quite safe leaning on it. On this very trip, when I exchanged my bike with my brother, leaning on the Hunter didn't really feel as natural as this one. Here, with that ankle plate and the tank grip that Triumph just provides you, like right of stock, it feels quite natural to lean and hang off and do so safely, effectively, smoothly. Most importantly, the cruising speeds, they range from 90 to 120, the comfortable cruising speeds. So when I am riding very casually and I just want to look at the scenery and I am very happy, dun, 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 I cruise at 90. So maybe I have a lot of time and I'm going back to my hometown, which is not too far away, and I am. It's morning time. It's beautiful. The farms are looking nice. I'll just go at 90, humming a song, looking around, feeling good, stopping a lot, taking a lot of breaks, and whatnot. But if I probably have to do a little bit of focused touring and I have to meet some kilometer goals, I would probably be going about 110 and max 120 if I feel that the highway is safe enough to do so. But anything more, I would be honest, the engine is not its happiest doing it at long lengths of interval, because then there will be a lot of vibration and you would not be able to sustain it. But up until 120, the amount of vibration, I have not minded it at all. And that might be a subjective thing, but probably take a test drive regarding it. And beautiful engine, very smooth. um, Rev matching and downshifting on it is very fun. Since it's a high revving engine, you have to I had to change my rev matching rhythm away from what I used to in my Honda SP or in the Hunter, I guess. But once you get its pace, it is very smooth. It is very smooth. It is almost like riding an automatic scooter with 17 and 19-inch tires and one which is very powerful. Very light clutch. Again, like coming from the Hunter to the Triumph, and even comparing it to bikes like the Highness, the clutch is so soft. I do not have any problem in riding it in traffic, except for the fact that it is quite wide, so I can't do lane filtering as efficient as those Splendor guys can. And bikes like the Hunter can go through those gaps, but mine can't. So that is the only thing that I think is a little bit of a con in that regard. In off-road, quite competent, probably not the best, not as good as the X-Pulse, I guess, or even the Himalayan, I guess, but very competent. I do not think that I shy away from what I face in my journeys. Like, I don't go out of my way to find very challenging off-road conditions, but whatever roads throw at me. uh, a while ago I went to Rodu from Ponta, and the road there is just atrocious. It is under construction. Only boleros and JCBs were going on it because it was quite literally almost under construction, and didn't really face any major issues with it. Obviously, like, local bike riders were going because they had to go from one village to the next, but that is a shorter journey, and I did a 14 hour riding day that day, and obviously my bum was killing me at the end. But the off-road handled beautifully, and any level of off-road that I've seen, not much of a challenge. Not much of a challenge probably, but not that much of an issue when comparing it to serious off-roaders, I guess. Touring, again, I told you I love this. I have toured with this extensively. It is very easy to overtake on this bike. I do not have to think twice before overtaking a truck, because that was very much of an issue when talking about smaller CC bikes, that they are unable to overtake buses, overtake trucks, overtake cars. But in this, it is just like riding an automatic scooter which has the power of a Ninja 300, I guess. I don't know. So very simple, very easy, just very smooth at taking those small flicky turns in traffic, very agile in the city. Um, about touring, especially, the posture is very nice. I do not think that it is the most upright posture that you can. So, if you are a very serious tourer, you probably would be more attracted to the Himalayan than this bike, very honestly. But for the purposes that I use this bike for, which is everyday commute and trips every month or every other month, definitely never had an issue. Love the posture. I do 300, 400 kilometers on it. Am I that tired? No, not now. Now that I know proper sitting technique, I guess, and easy, completely easy. Talking about hills, cornering is fun. The engine is very powerful. You do not need to think much about riding on inclined roads. So it's very simple. I haven't taken it to very high altitudes like Ladakh. The maximum that I've taken it to is, I think, Sisu and Kelong, and I mean, those are not that high altitudes where the altitude would probably play a factor. But up until that point, zero issues with the bike. Just a beautiful engine, a beautiful bike. So now let us talk about the cons of the bike and the issues that I have with this bike. And as much as I just simply love it, I did not expect the amount of maintenance that I have to do. The costs are a lot, the amount of maintenance is a lot. So back in my 125cc days, I would just go down to the garage once a year or so and just say, service kar de bhaiya, bhai, service kar de. And he would give me a bill of about 800, 1200, I don't know. And that's all that needed to happen. Done. No need to think about chains, no need to think about brake pads. I had never had to think of a single thing back then. But the amount of learning that I have had to do in this bike, I wouldn't say that it's not fun. It has been fun to learn more about how a bike works on a mechanical level and the amount of things that you need to take care of. But I just wish that it wouldn't be so damn expensive. And this bike just takes a lot of money, and that is partly due to how ignorant I've been about maintenance in the past. And even today, I'm still just learning things, and I am quite sad that there isn't really a learning educational system for new riders, that you are just probably handed out right off the bat when you buy a bigger machine. Because I wish I had that big. I wish I didn't need to break apart and then take it to service and then having to learn it. I wish I just knew that I was meant to check my brake pads. I didn't even know brake pads were a thing. I didn't know that chain slack adjustment was a thing until I very unfortunately literally had my chain fall off the bike in a very deserted area of Himachal. And I had to wait about 40 minutes or so for help. And then I took it to the localist mechanic and just had enough done so that it would survive going to the Triumph service center where I had to get the entire chain set replaced and things of that nature. Like, I just wish that I got to know these things before these things broke. And even the service center guys at Triumph Gurgaon, they are so responsive, they're so quick to adjust things, and they let you know everything. They educate you on everything, but only once you ask them about it. So if you are going to buy a bigger bike, my suggestion to you would be to be proactive in learning these things. But I do not have a resource to give to you. If you have a resource about this, please comment down below. I would like to know about another part before I have broken it. Because shit is quite expensive, man. I can't sustain this. I didn't know that my suspension could be stiffened until I had owned my bike for about a year. So for a year, I was riding a bike with softer suspensions than it should have had. So things like this, I think they have ended up being quite costly to me. The knuckle guards on the Triumph 400X, they are quite weak, so I have had them broken twice now. Once by a coworker who fell my bike, and the next time by me. I have had rusting at two parts. I have had rusting in the chain, and that is after a year and a half of ownership. And I do fairly regular chain cleaning and lubing, not very militant about it, but fairly frequently, fairly regularly, not too much of the schedule. And I have had rusting at the very end of the right handlebar, and that is probably because I fell my bike there and my knuckle guards broke and probably the paint scratched off, and that is why that has happened probably. But another thing I want to talk about is pillion comfort levels, and that is not a huge cause of discussion over in media in YouTube. And I would say that the pillions would not be very happy after about a couple of hours of riding. So you will be good in the city. I think you will be good touring for about an hour, 2 hours, but for more, they are gonna be not so happy. The amount of space is medium, it is not too much. So it depends a lot on how large your medium, how big your pillion is, and how big their bum is. So, for example, my younger brothers who are quite average sized, maybe towards a little bit towards the thinner side, but probably, yeah, average to average thin, they are quite happy with the amount of space that this bike offers, and they haven't had an issue with it. But when my best friend sits on it, who is 6'2" and decently wide, quite wide, much wider than average, I guess, he is not very happy with the amount of space that this bike offers, and he starts complaining after half an hour on the back seat. And he is not that happy with the amount of absorption that the back suspension provides in off-road areas. And that is not the same for the rider, because the suspension is more calibrated for the person who is sitting in the middle. So I don't really feel those bumps as much as he does. I have had done touring with pillion as well, with the saddlebags on both sides of their leg, and not the happiest after a couple of hours. So the seat is a little bit firm, and probably because I've done 23,000 kilometers on my seat, I think my seat has softened up now compared to the pillion seat. I don't know if that is a feature that comes from stock, that the pillion seat was not soft and mine was soft of the stock. I don't know. But right now, after 23,000 kilometers of my bum compressing my seat, it has become relatively softer, I guess. And I don't I don't have any issues. I can do hours and hours of riding. I don't complain about the seat softness. In fact, I would be quite unhappy with the softer seat. I quite like the very amount of firmness that my seat provides me. So when I sat pillion behind my friend Akash, who did a test drive on my bike after I had bought it. Now I'm a very wide guy. I'm quite fat, to be very honest, but I don't have the biggest bum. So my fat concentration is towards my belly, rather than my bum area, I guess. And I didn't have any issues with the amount of size. So, Gyandip, sort your bum issues, man. You are too fat in the bum area, I guess. I don't know. Now, Akash is very, very thin, and probably that is why I thought that I had so much space. And since I am so wide and Gyandip is also so wide, and the two of us fat asses sitting on this bike and making it look like splendor, probably that is the issue. So you might not have the same spacing issues if you aren't as large as I am. And I just had an image pop up in my head. Have you ever seen the great Khali riding the Bolt, bullet? It looks like a damn splendor on him. He is Vishalkai, just enormous. He makes a bullet look like a splendor, man. Like crazy. Lastly, again on the costs, which is my main con with this bike. With my Honda SP, I used to fill about 1,000, maybe 1,200, probably 800 to 1,000 rupees of petrol a month, and it used to last a long time. It used to last me the entire month of commuting 40 kilometers Monday to Friday, I think. And I also used to do a 160 kilometer ish trip to my hometown every month, I think, on that bike. And it just used to last me that entire time. Whereas with the Triumph, it is an entirely different story. So I'm a relatively calmer rider and I get a lot more fuel efficiency with my riding style compared to other Triumph riders. And they are seeing atrocious numbers, which are like 22 kmpl and 21 kmpl, maybe even I've seen people say 19. Sub 20, that is atrocious for a bike. How can a 1,000+ cc car engine provide more efficiency when it is carrying 2 tons of metal and 3 people in it? I do not get it. But this engine is inefficient, it is fuel thirsty, and it is not something that you will not feel, your wallet will not feel. Because I was prepared for my fuel costs to go up a little bit, but not this very much. This is insane. And right now, my heart pains me when I stop for fuel and my brother on the Hunter 350, he just says like, "Abhi to bacha hai, abhi yodel maa raha hai." And I say, I need it, my brother. So that is all I think from my side. I think I have covered the most common questions that I get regarding my ownership experience of the Triumph Scrambler 400X. I would say that in spite of the ownership cost that this bike brings me, I'm still so very happy with just how beautiful this bike's engine is, how beautiful its riding dynamics are, and I would not trade this for anything in the world. So please like and subscribe if you liked that video. I intend on making more bike related videos, probably some how to videos, because I think there is a lack of discourse about proper braking technique in India and things of that nature. So, for example, when I was learning bike riding, I used to hear this advice of using the rear brake primarily, whereas that is incorrect if you want to be very efficient with the braking. So, subscribe, like, follow, and whatever it is that these digital algorithm things require you to do to maybe get me on your screen again. And thank you very much. Peace.